Everyone thinks they know why the Brown family fell apart. They think it was about jealousy or catfishing or simply falling out of love. But if you follow the money, specifically a missing $2 million, a much darker picture emerges. We are talking about a calculated financial heist that happened right in front of the cameras, culminating in a secret non-disclosure agreement designed to silence the one person who knew where the bodies were buried. This wasn't just a bad divorce. This was a systematic extraction of wealth. We have uncovered details about a secret gag order Kody attempted to enforce, a maneuver so legally aggressive it suggests he wasn't just trying to protect his reputation, but perhaps hiding a financial paper trail that could ruin him. When you look at the sale of the Las Vegas homes and where that equity actually went, the math doesn't just fail to add up. It points to a deliberate backdoor deal that left one wife paying for a mansion she wasn't allowed to live in. Before we expose the documents and the secret recording that changes everything, I need you to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are digging into the reality TV secrets they don't want you to know, and trust me, you do not want to miss the updates we have coming on this investigation. To understand how this heist was pulled off, we have to go back to the moment the trap was set. It started in Las Vegas. The family owned 4 homes in a cul-de-sac, representing the bulk of their combined wealth. When the decision was made to move to Flagstaff, the narrative sold to the audience was that the market was right and they needed to liquidate to build on Coyote Pass. But looking back at the footage with a forensic eye, the urgency feels artificial. Insider reports and theories from those close to production have long suggested that the move wasn't about the market at all, but about liquidating assets that were legally tied to the wives so the cash could be moved into new investments under Kody and Robyn's direct control. The Vegas homes were the only leverage Meri, Janelle, and Christine had. Once those houses were sold, that equity became liquid cash, cash that Kody could and did intercept. The smoking gun here is the specific transaction regarding Meri's Las Vegas home. When Meri finally sold her house, she walked away with a significant check. This was her money. It was her equity, derived from her income and her mortgage payments. Legally and morally, that capital belonged to her. But this is where the manipulation reached a fever pitch. Kody and Robyn were desperate. They had already purchased the massive mansion in Flagstaff, the one that sits on a hill overlooking the rest of the family's undeveloped mud pits. They were bleeding money. They needed a massive infusion of cash to close on that property and keep their heads above water. Kody didn't go to a bank. He went to Meri. He played on her desire for reconciliation, painting a picture where her contribution would be the glue that held the family together. He didn't ask for a gift. He asked for a short-term loan. This is the critical point that changes the entire story. Meri didn't just hand over cash out of the goodness of her heart. She entered into a verbal contract. She agreed to take the entirety of her equity from the Vegas sale, every single dime, and transfer it directly to Kody and Robyn to secure their down payment. The agreement was simple. She helps them buy the house, and when the family property on Coyote Pass is paid off or restructured, she gets her money back. It was a bridge loan between spouses, or at least that's what Meri thought it was. But looking at Kody's behavior immediately after the check cleared, it becomes obvious that he never intended to pay that money back. There have been whispers in the industry that Kody may have even categorized this transfer internally in a way that stripped it of any legal obligation for repayment, effectively tricking Meri into signing away her net worth. What makes this betrayal so visceral is the way Kody rewrote history the moment he had the money in his account. During the tell-all interviews, he looked dead into the camera lens with zero hesitation and claimed that Meri was the greedy one. He tried to spin a narrative that Meri wanted all the money from her house sale, citing their divorce decree to paint her as a woman obsessed with cash. It was a stunning display of gaslighting. He was banking on the audience not knowing the details. He was betting that we wouldn't remember the timeline. The reality was the exact opposite of his claim. Meri didn't keep the money. She didn't hoard it. She voluntarily stripped herself of financial security to put a roof over Robyn's head. The audacity to call her greedy while sitting in a living room paid for by her sacrifice is a level of narcissism that is hard to comprehend. Robyn's role in this cannot be overstated. While Kody was the loud enforcer, Robyn was the silent beneficiary. When the topic of the money came up, Robyn immediately backed Kody's lies. She jumped in to claim that Kody had been paying Meri's insurance and bills, trying to create a ledger where Meri actually owed them money. This was the double bind strategy. If Meri spoke up about the loan, they would counter accuse her of being a financial drain on the family. But Meri instantly shut this down, calling it ridiculous and pointing out that her insurance was bundled into the mortgage that she paid. They couldn't keep their lies straight because the math simply didn't exist to support them. It was a fabrication designed to confuse the audience and shame Meri into silence. The stakes got higher as the market turned. The Flagstaff mansion that Meri's money helped purchase didn't just sit there. It exploded in value. It went from being a $900,000 property to a luxury estate worth over $2 million. Kody and Robyn were sitting on a gold mine, and a massive chunk of that equity belonged to Meri. But did they offer to cut her in on the appreciation? Did they offer to pay her back with interest? No. They acted as if her contribution never happened. The money vanished into the family pot, which is a convenient term Kody uses for accounts that only he and Robyn can access. There has been speculation circulating on online forums and from legal experts analyzing the show that Kody may have been moving assets around to make himself look cash poor on paper, ensuring that if Meri ever sued, there would be nothing for her to take. This brings us to the moment where the family pot theory completely fell apart. Kody and Robyn decided they needed to buy more land or adjust the property lines on Coyote Pass. To do this, they needed Meri to sign off on certain legal documents. Meri, realizing she had been duped, decided to use the only leverage she had left. She told Kody that she wouldn't sign anything regarding the land until she was repaid the money she lent them for the house. It was a fair request. It was a business transaction. But Kody's reaction wasn't that of a man caught in a debt. It was the reaction of a man who was insulted that his victim was speaking up. This is where the backdoor deal confession comes into play, and it is perhaps the most chilling moment in the entire series. Caught in a moment of frustration, Kody literally admitted on camera that he considered doing a deal with Janelle to sell off parts of the land behind Meri's back. He wanted to bypass her completely. And then he dropped the line that exposed his true intent. When asked when he planned to pay Meri back or if he would send her the check she was waiting for, he said he would have sent it 2 to 3 weeks from now. Let that sink in. 2 to 3 weeks from now. He wasn't struggling to find the funds. He wasn't waiting for a check to clear. He had decided, unilaterally, that the loan was a gift and that Meri didn't deserve to be repaid. He confessed to plotting financial theft on national television. But the story gets darker. When Meri realized that never was the actual timeline, she began to push harder. She had the receipts. She knew the dates, the amounts, and the promises made. Kody and Robyn realized they had a massive liability on their hands. If Meri went public with the receipts, or worse, if she took them to court, it wouldn't just be a civil matter. It would destroy the carefully crafted image of Kody as the benevolent patriarch. It was was at this point, according to insiders and analyzing the sudden shift in their dynamic, that the NDA was introduced. The halted deal on Coyote Pass wasn't just about money. It was about control. Kody and Robyn allegedly halted the process and demanded Meri sign a non-disclosure agreement as a condition of any further negotiation. Why would they need an NDA for a property dispute? You don't need a gag order for a simple loan repayment unless there is something else being hidden. Reports suggest that the NDA contained clauses that would prevent Meri from ever writing a book or speaking about the internal financial structures of the family. This leads to the terrifying possibility that the $2 million heist wasn't just about the house. It was about silencing Meri regarding where the rest of the family money had gone over the years. Was the Flagstaff house just the tip of the iceberg? Kody's behavior fits a vicious pattern that psychologists call DARVO: deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. He took what Meri actually did, gave him money, and flipped it to accuse her of taking money. He took her generosity and reframed it as greed. He takes his wives' youth, their earnings, and their emotional energy, and when they finally ask for basic accountability, he rewrites history to make himself the victim of their bitterness. He tried to hide behind the legalities of the divorce decree, claiming that's not how the decree went, hoping no one would check the records. But the decree actually proves Meri's immense generosity. She gave him far more than she was legally required to, and his repayment was to try and legally gag her. The irony here is palpable. Kody spent years preaching about family unity, about the big picture, and about how everyone helps each other. He demanded loyalty. But the second someone asked, "You owe me money, when are you paying it back?" the mask slipped. He became defensive, manipulative, and cruel. He viewed a request for repayment as an act of treason. This hypocrisy is the core moral failure of the entire saga. It wasn't about plural marriage, it was about a singular bank account. For years, Meri stayed silent. She honored her word to keep the financial arrangement private. She took the abuse from the fans who called her pathetic for staying. She took the heat from the media. She let Kody and Robyn paint her as the villain, all because she believed in the promise that she would be made whole. But that silence was a trap. By staying quiet, she allowed them to control the narrative. It was only when Kody lied on camera, effectively mocking her sacrifice, that her consent for silence was revoked. The isolation she felt must have been crushing, but it was that isolation that eventually turned into clarity. But just as Meri was preparing to push back, something strange happened with the property lines. Rumors began to swirl that Kody was looking to liquidate Coyote Pass entirely, but he couldn't do it without Meri's signature. He was stuck. He had the mansion, but he was cash poor and asset rich, and the one person he had stiffed held the key to unlocking his liquidity. This standoff led to a series of secret meetings and heated exchanges that were never aired on the show. We are hearing stories of late night texts and legal threats that were kept off camera to protect the show's rating. But the tension was visible in every scene they filmed together. And this is where we have to ask the ultimate question. What is Kody so afraid of Meri revealing? Is it just the loan for the house? Or is there a ledger of family funds that shows a systematic funneling of money from the 3 original wives into assets that only bear Robyn's name? Some theories suggest that the heist isn't just about the Vegas equity, but about a decade of TLC paychecks that were distributed unfairly. If Meri has the proof of that, an NDA wouldn't just be a precaution. It would be a survival strategy for Kody. As we move deeper into this investigation, we need to look at the timeline of the Coyote Pass payoff. Kody claimed he needed to pay off the land to build, but weeks turned into months and months into years. The land sat empty. Why? Because paying off the land would require transparency. It would require opening the books. And that is the one thing Kody Brown can never afford to do. But that wasn't the whole story. While Kody was playing checkers with the property lines, Meri was playing chess with her exit strategy. And what happened next would shock everyone. Because while Kody thought he had her backed into a corner with the NDA threat, Meri was quietly gathering the ammunition she needed to blow the entire scheme wide open. When we talk about a non-disclosure agreement in the context of a reality TV marriage, we aren't talking about protecting the show's plot lines. We are talking about protecting a lifestyle that was built on a lie. The moment Kody presented Meri with the idea of a legal gag order, the dynamic shifted from a family dispute to a corporate cover-up. Why would a husband need his wife to sign a contract promising silence if he had nothing to hide? Legal experts and industry insiders have pointed out that NDAs in divorces are typically used to protect trade secrets or high-level business assets, not to manage the breakup of a spiritual union. This move suggests that Kody wasn't just worried about Meri bad-mouthing him. He was terrified she would open the books. Reports from sources close to the production have long speculated that the family funds were not distributed equally, and that a forensic accounting of the family pot would reveal that money earned by Meri, Janelle, and Christine was systematically funneled into assets that legally belong only to Kody and Robyn. This is where the trap was supposed to snap shut. Kody held the title to the Coyote Pass land, the land Meri had paid for, the land she was promised would be her inheritance. He held it over her head like a carrot on a stick. The implication was clear. If you want your land, or if you want your money back to build on it, you need to sign away your right to speak. He was essentially asking her to buy her own silence with her own money. It was a masterclass in manipulation. But Kody made a critical error. He assumed Meri was still the same person she was 5 years ago, desperate for his approval and willing to take scraps. He didn't realize that the moment he insulted her integrity by calling her greedy, the blinders came off. The backdoor deal Kody admitted to on camera is the smoking gun of this financial betrayal. It wasn't just a fleeting thought, it was a strategy. He explicitly stated that he considered working with Janelle to buy the land or restructure the titles without Meri's involvement. This is the definition of conspiracy. He was plotting with one ex-wife to defraud another. The chilling part of this confession is the casual cruelty of it. He sat there, comfortable in his interview chair, and told the world that he had no intention of honoring his debts. 2 to 3 weeks from now became the slogan of his financial philosophy. It was a slip of the tongue that revealed his true character. He didn't view the money Meri gave him as a loan. He viewed it as a tribute. In his mind, as the patriarch, he was entitled to her resources, and her asking for them back was an act of rebellion. But let's look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie. While Meri was living in a rental, paying exorbitant fees, and fighting for a scrap of land, Robyn was living in a mansion filled with expensive art, collectibles, and clutter that has become the stuff of internet legend. Viewers have spotted thousands of dollars worth of figurines and decor in the background of Robyn's scenes. Where did the money for that come from? Robyn hasn't worked a traditional job in years. Her novelty jewelry business, My Sister Wife's Closet, has been dormant and reportedly operating at a loss for a long time. So if Robyn isn't bringing in the income and Kody is complaining about poverty, whose money is buying the figurines? The math points directly to the other wives. The heist wasn't a one-time event. It was a slow siphon. Every month that Meri didn't get paid back was another month she was effectively financing Robyn's shopping habits. There is a theory circulating that Kody's anger towards Meri wasn't about the catfish incident or their lack of intimacy anymore. It was about the fact that she was the highest earner in the family for a long time, and he lost control over her paycheck. When Meri started her bed and breakfast, she did it on her own. She refused to let Kody be a partner. That decision saved her financial life. If she had let Kody and Robyn on the title of the B&B, that equity likely would have been drained just like the Vegas money. Kody's resentment towards the B&B stems from his inability to access its profits. He saw a revenue stream he couldn't tap, and it drove him mad. The hypocrisy reaches a boiling point when you compare Kody's treatment of Meri to his treatment of Robyn. When Robyn entered the family, her debts were paid off by the family. Her credit was repaired by the family. Her home was purchased by the family. Yet, when Meri, who had contributed for decades, asked for a fair shake, she was treated like a hostile creditor. Kody's narrative that Meri has more than her fair share is a deliberate distortion. He counts her assets, the ones she worked for alone, against her, while ignoring the fact that he and Robyn are sitting on the largest asset of all, paid for by the collective effort. This leads us to the news tactic Kody employs. He constantly throws out accusations to see what sticks, trying to muddy the waters. He claimed Meri wanted to take the whole property. He claimed the laws were different. He claimed he was protecting the family. But insider leaks suggest a different story. There are rumors that Kody was facing a liquidity crisis. Some reports allege that bad investments, possibly in the gun show circuit or other ventures, had left him cash poor despite his assets. He didn't pay Meri back because he couldn't. The money was gone. And admitting that the money was gone would mean admitting he failed as the financial head of the household. So instead of confessing to bad business, he attacked Meri's character. It is a classic diversion tactic. If everyone is talking about how selfish Meri is, nobody is asking to see the bank statements. The psychological toll of this cannot be ignored. For years, Meri was gaslighted into believing that if she just gave a little more money, a little more loyalty, a little more silence, Kody would love her again. The financial abuse was inextricably linked to the emotional abuse. He used the promise of reconciliation as a lure to get her to sign checks. If you help the family, you're part of the family. But once the check cleared, the goalposts moved. Suddenly, she was an outsider again. This is a pattern of behavior that borders on predatory. He identified her vulnerability, exploited it for cash, and then discarded her when the transaction was complete. But the silence was about to break. The fan base, usually divided, began to unite behind Meri as the details of the financial arrangement came to light. Legal analysts began posting videos breaking down the verbal contracts aired on the show. Kody's backdoor deal comment went viral, not as a moment of strength, but as a confession of intent to defraud. The pressure was mounting, and inside the family, the other dominoes were falling. Christine had left. Janelle was asking questions about the accounts. Kody was losing his grip on the narrative. The NDA was his last-ditch effort to stop the bleeding. If he could get Meri to sign, he could seal the records forever. But he underestimated the power of a woman who has nothing left to lose. Meri realized that signing the NDA would mean signing away her dignity. It would mean agreeing that what happened to her was acceptable. It would mean protecting the very people who robbed her. So she did something Kody never expected. She stalled. She played dumb. She kept the conversation going while she quietly separated her finances even further. Speculation is now rampant about what specifically the NDA covered. Was it just the Coyote Pass deal, or did it include a clause about the family LLC? There are reports that that the family LLC, the entity that received the show's paycheck, was structured in a way that gave Kody unilateral control over disbursement. If true, this means he could legally withhold money from the wives under the guise of business expenses or future investments. An NDA would prevent Meri from ever challenging that structure in court. It was the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for white-collar domestic theft. But the biggest twist in this saga was yet to come. While Kody was focused on the legal paperwork, he forgot about the social contract. He forgot that in the court of public opinion, the truth always finds a way out. And Meri wasn't just relying on lawyers, she was relying on the truth. The irony is that by trying so hard to silence her, Kody actually amplified her voice. Every time he mentioned the complexity of the situation, viewers dug deeper. Every time Robyn cried about confusion, the audience found clarity. The setup for the final confrontation was perfect. Kody and Robyn were isolated in their mansion, surrounded by boxes of unsold inventory and mounting property taxes. Meri was on the outside, but she was free. She had her business, she had her friends, and crucially, she had the knowledge of where the money went. The power dynamic had completely flipped. Kody was no longer the king holding court. He was a debtor trying to avoid his creditors. As we prepare to expose the final chapter of this heist, you have to ask yourself, how much money would it take for you to betray your spouse? For Kody and Robyn, the price was apparently the cost of a down payment. But that wasn't the end of the story, because just when they thought they had successfully gagged Meri, a new piece of information surfaced, a detail about the property title that Kody had overlooked in his arrogance. And what happened next would not only threaten their financial standing, but potentially expose them to legal action that no NDA could prevent. The detail that Kody Brown overlooked in his arrogance was a simple matter of leverage. He thought that by controlling the narrative and withholding affection, he could force Meri to sign away her rights. But he forgot about the title loophole. While Kody and Robyn's names were on the deed to the mansion, the money trail leading to that purchase was undeniably Meri's. Legal experts analyzing the situation have pointed out that in many jurisdictions, this creates what is known as a constructive trust. Even without a formal written contract for the loan, the clear paper trail of funds transferring from Meri's Vegas sale directly to Kody's closing cost establishes an equitable interest. This means that legally, Meri could argue she owns a percentage of that mansion. This is the nightmare scenario for Kody. If Meri were to sue, she wouldn't just be asking for her money back. She could potentially force the sale of the home to recoup her investment. This is likely why the NDA was so aggressive. Kody wasn't just trying to stop a leak. He was trying to prevent a foreclosure on his lifestyle. The realization of this vulnerability sent Kody into a tailspin. We saw glimpses of this panic in his erratic behavior during the final seasons. He became increasingly hostile, ranting about loyalty and patriarchy. These weren't the words of a confident leader. They were the words of a man who knew he was holding a losing hand. Insider theories suggest that Kody scrambled to find a way to pay Meri off without actually using his own money, perhaps by trying to leverage the Coyote Pass land again. But here is the catch. He couldn't do anything with the land without Meri's cooperation because of how the parcels were originally divided. He was trapped in a financial prison of his own making. He needed Meri to sign off to get liquidity, but she wouldn't sign off without getting paid. It was a stalemate, and for the first time in decades, Meri held the keys. This standoff exposed the true nature of Robyn's confusion. Robyn often cried on camera, claiming she didn't understand why the family was falling apart. But looking at the financial reality, her confusion seems like a performance. Robyn is the legal wife. She is the one whose name is on the assets. She is the one who benefits if Meri walks away with nothing. The heist required Robyn's complicity. She had to accept the money for her home, knowing it came from a woman her husband was actively trying to push out. The morality of that decision is staggering. It paints a picture of a couple who viewed the other wives not as partners, but as investors to be exploited. The trap of the NDA ultimately failed because Meri refused to walk into it. By declining to sign, she retained her voice and her power. This decision was the catalyst for the total collapse of Kody's credibility. When the news broke that Meri was leaving, really leaving, it wasn't just a breakup, it was a business dissolution. She took her income, her B&B, and her potential future earnings with her. Kody was left with a massive mortgage, a property tax bill for undeveloped land, and a lifestyle he could no longer afford on his own. The empire he tried to build was revealed to be a house of cards. The aftermath of this financial betrayal has been devastating for Kody's public image. He bet that the audience would side with him or at least be confused enough to stay neutral. He was wrong. The internet turned into a hive of amateur forensic accountants, tracking every dollar and every lie. The $2 million heist became the defining narrative of his legacy. He is no longer seen as a quirky polygamist. He is viewed by many as a financial predator who used religious manipulation to secure interest-free loans from vulnerable women. The news tactics he tried to use, planting stories about Meri's unfaithfulness or her difficult personality, backfired completely. They only served to highlight his own malice. Now, Kody and Robyn sit in their mansion, isolated. The family gatherings are gone. The chaotic but vibrant life of the Brown family has been replaced by silence and stuff. Reports from Flagstaff describe a couple who rarely leave their home, surrounded by the material possessions they prioritized over people. The irony is tragic. Kody sacrificed his relationships with his children and his wives for financial security, only to end up in a precarious financial position, despised by the public and estranged from the people who once loved him. The Coyote Pass dream remains just that. A dream. The land sits there, undeveloped, a monument to his greed and mismanagement. It is a barren stretch of dirt that cost him everything that actually mattered. The psychological impact on Meri, however, has been a story of redemption. By refusing to be silenced, she reclaimed her narrative. She walked away from the, quote, sunk cost of the marriage. She realized that the money she lost was the price of her freedom. In a way, that $2 million, or however much the total equity came to, was a severance package she paid to herself to get out of a toxic contract. She is thriving, running her business, traveling, and living a life free from the constant gaslighting of a man who only saw her as a bank account. This story serves as a cautionary tale about financial abuse. It shows how easily family funds can become a weapon in the hands of a narcissist. It exposes the danger of mixing love and business without legal protection. Kody Brown thought he could rewrite the rules of finance just like he tried to rewrite the rules of marriage, but the math always wins in the end. He tried to pull off the perfect heist, stealing the equity and the narrative, but he forgot that the receipts exist. And in the digital age, nothing stays hidden forever. We have only scratched the surface of the financial entanglement of this family. There are still questions about the Dabsark LLC, the mysterious business loans, and the future of the Coyote Pass land. Will Kody be forced to sell the mansion to pay off his debts? Will Meri take legal action to reclaim her investment? The rumors are flying, and the situation is fluid. We are hearing whispers of a potential tell-all book that could lay out the specific wire transfers and bank statements, finally putting a hard number on exactly how much was taken. If that happens, it will be the final nail in the coffin of Kody Brown's reputation. You do not want to miss the next update on this saga. We are tracking the property records in real time and will bring you the news the second a sale or a lawsuit drops. If you think Kody should be forced to pay Meri back every single cent with interest, hit that like button right now. Leave a comment down below. Do you think Meri should sue him, or is she better off just walking away and never looking back? I want to hear your theories. And make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on, because the truth about the Brown family finances is getting darker by the day, and we are going to expose every last dime. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.